I'd like to introduce our newest sponsor, Swim Angelfish. Swim Angelfish is an online certification program that strengthens your teaching curriculum to serve swimmers of all abilities. Swim Angelfish will prepare you and your instructors with the skills to teach swimmers with autism, physical disabilities, anxiety, sensory and motor conditions, and more. Learn to teach skills faster and with more comfort with Swim Angelfish. Apply for an Only Alpha Pool Product Scholarship and receive up to 50% off your certification. Go to swimangelfish.com today to apply. Looking to host your first swim meet or replacing an old timing system? Run a swim meet with ease from your laptop using Superior Swim Timing. You can use Superior Swim Timing with your existing equipment, or they can provide you with a complete timing solution, including deck harnesses, buttons, and starter. SST is fully compatible with Hy-Tek and Team Unify, as well as Colorado, Daktronics, and Amiga touchpads. Go to superiorswimtiming.com to learn more and be sure to tell them I sent you. All right, Simon Cusack, all the way from quarantine in Darwin, Australia. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Hawke, yourself?
Doing well, mate. Thanks. I appreciate you doing this.
No worries. Got plenty of time on my hands at the moment.
Now, you told me, talk me through what you guys do every morning again.
So from about 8:30, we have temperature checks. And then at 9 a.m. sharp, we start 1 hour of PT class where we've got just about all of the staff lined up on consecutive verandas, and a number of athletes have started joining us too now. And we do 1 hour of 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off with generally about 10 exercises and roll through that 6 times. And then spend the rest of the day trying to recover.
You guys are just stuck in kind of like a real quarantine where you're just on your balcony. You're not allowed off the balcony?
Correct, yeah. So we're in Howard Springs, which was set up as a mining camp. So each room's self-contained and has its own little balcony. And we're not supposed to leave our balcony unless we're every other day we can do washing. So people tend to find small items to take down to the laundromat so they can get a few steps up for the day.
I love it, mate. Well, listen, hey, first of all, congratulations on another fantastic Olympic campaign for your crew, and then the best Australian swim team in history, mate. It must feel pretty good to be part of that.
Yes, mate. Yeah, it was a bit of a Goldilocks year this year, and I've been around for long enough to know that they don't happen that regularly. So I was able to really take it all in and enjoy it, and fully celebrate everybody's successes.
Yeah, mate, it really is interesting to think, even just a year ago, the possibility of it not happening was so real. And even if you did think it may happen, you weren't even sure how you were going to get there, based on some of the things that were happening within everybody's countries, like in terms of just training. How do you get ready to perform at Olympic Games. Talk me through just quickly some of the challenges you faced in the last year in getting the girls, specifically the Campbell sisters, ready for the Olympics.
Yeah, so we were very much ready for 2020. Cate was in very good shape for the 2020 Olympics. Bronte, not so much. She's been carrying injuries for probably since about late 2015, on and off. So for Cate, it was probably a big disruption having the Olympics postponed. For Bronte, it was a blessing in disguise. So it was a double-edged sword there. Now, once the Olympics were cancelled, and we all went down into lockdown in Sydney, it soon became fairly evident that Sydney was probably one of the worst places to prepare within Australia, as in that when COVID got away, it really got away. So then, we decided to relocate back to Brisbane in December of 2020 and rebase ourselves back up there at Chandler again for the remainder of that prep. So, I've had to juggle injuries with those girls for 4 years now. And so it was pretty amazing, really, that they could both make their fourth and third team. And then, once again, win that 4x1 gold and both be part of it. And Cate come away with an individual bronze medal, which is how she started in 2008. So, yeah.
Yeah, mate, it's pretty remarkable. I saw she put something out the other day that I didn't really fully know and appreciate, that you'd been coaching her basically since she was something like 8 years old, 20 years or something. Is that right?
That's right. So Bronte was 7 and Cate was 9 when they walked into the pool that I was coaching at back then, Indooroopilly Swimming Club. And that was 20 years to the day that they won the 4x1 gold medal in Tokyo. So, it's uncanny.
It's crazy. I mean, to think of it, to think that you were coaching 7-year-olds, first of all, and now you're coaching Olympic champions, world record holders. That's insane to think of, just even your progression in that sequence. But how do you end up being able to manage, sisters, first of all the way through their entire careers? How were you able to move with them through that process?
I think some good advice that I was given years ago by Scott Volkers, probably it would have been 2006 when Cate broke her first national age record. And he told me back then, stay one jump in front of your athletes or be prepared to lose them. And so that's something that I really took to heart. And I took every opportunity that was presented to me for professional development and upskilling, and just managed to be able to play another card all the way through their careers. Other than injury or periods where we had glandular fever and subsequently post-spiral fatigue in 2010, we haven't really had too many stagnant years, or unsuccessful benchmark meets. So I think that I really took that to heart, to be never rest on your laurels and stay one jump ahead.
In terms of just coaching both of them, how have you managed to coach sisters like this to this level? It's kind of unseen and probably uncharted territory for most people. So it's not like you could go and ask somebody. So you're learning as you're going, I imagine.
Yeah, learning. I grew up with 2 sisters who were quite different, had quite different personalities. Cate and Bronte have very different personalities. The only thing that they've got in common really is the fact that they swim and they come from the same parents. But you've got Kate's very much a empathetic person. Can be quite emotional, is a real feeler, will always consider others' needs before her own, and which it's probably been a little bit detrimental to her career as an athlete, but we love her for it. She's always been the protector of the pride and and she's always put team first. Bronte, on the other hand, she's very much a team player, but from a young age, she was a calculated. I used to call her the calculated assassin. So, from a young age, she wrote down a list of athletes that she wanted to bump off, and she worked her way through that list until she won dual gold in 2015 at Kazan. So they're very different girls. They've utilised each other's drive for training to motivate each other. They've competed head to head many times and in and out of the training pool. But there have been some times when I've just had to separate them, put them in separate lines because one's got superior strengths to the other, and in some regard, and vice versa in other aspects. So it has been a juggle, mate. There was no book on it. I think we've just got through it.
Well, you've done a fantastic job with it, mate. Yeah, I love the fact that she had a Kill Bill list. Did she ever have Cate on her Kill Bill list? That she wanted to take her down?
Oh yeah. Well, Cate was number one. So after 2013, so she was up there. She was top of that hit list.
Oh God, I can just imagine Christmas lunch at their place. That's awesome, mate. Wow. Well, just in terms of you, I mean, you've got some history yourself. I believe it's some family history in terms of swimming. Talk to me about some of your history and your family lineage.
So my great uncle was Arthur Cusack, and he leased swimming pools along with other things. I think he had a pub at one stage, but his passion was swimming, and he leased the swimming pool in Maryborough, and then later the Centenary pool in Brisbane, and then went on to become the state director, coaching director of Swimming Queensland. Along that way, he had along the path, he had a lot of very well-known champions, including David Thiel, the dual backstroke Olympic champion. He also coached my father to the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, and where he teamed up with other guys, including Mike Wendon, to win the bronze medal in the 4x100 freestyle. Now, I think Dad placed about 8th in the 100 fly final after getting a belly full of Mexican water and subsequently getting gastro. So it wasn't the best meet for him, the greatest memory. And then, so I've had Arthur was a coach. My father went into coaching after spending about 4 years working for local government as an office clerk and being bored out of his brain. So he started at Indooroopilly Swimming Club in 1977, and his brother coached and other cousins coached. So there was a lot of Cusacks on the swimming scene, and therefore, growing up in and around swimming, it was the last thing I had on my mind. I was never going to be a coach.
How'd you end up getting pulled in, sucked into it, mate? As we all do, but how'd you do it?
Yeah, so I left school and did a carpentry trade, so 4-year carpentry trade, and finished that. And as a young guy, I'd grown up watching John Wayne movies, and I love those westerns. So once I had my trade ticket, I started working my way through the bucket list, and one was to cowboy in the Rocky Mountains in Montana and live in a log cabin. So I'd had some horses growing up, and anyway, I managed to get a 9-month visa as part of an ag exchange program. Did a year in Montana, and then came back and did another year as a stockman up in the northern Australia, contract mustering. And the wet season was rolling around. It was about late September of 1999, and I rang home, checked in. I used to check in once a month, let them know I was still alive, hadn't been bucked off a horse and landed on my head or anything. And my father said, "What are you going to do when you come back?" And I said, "I'll probably just take a break and then come back up contract mustering in the next season." And he said, "Oh, could you give us a hand as an assistant coach?" He said, "My assistant has just given up on me. She's pregnant and suffering some ill health. So I said, I'll give you 3 months, and that was October 1999, and I just enjoyed it and got bitten by the bug, and it sort of grew from there. I started out doing, like most young coaches, doing learn to swim, and the stroke correction and the junior squads, and then gradually, I think about 2002 or thereabouts, was handed over the national age program, which was about as high as the standard went in the in Indooroopilly Swimming Club back then, coaching out of a 6-lane 25-meter pool, and then just progressed.
Well, I mean, the progression is incredible. Like I said, you're now one of the leaders of the world's one of the leading programs in the world, the Australian swim team. So in terms of like going from the man from Snowy River to one of the top coaches in the world, coaching multiple Olympic medalists, what's the in between there? So you've obviously had some incredible mentors that have helped you along, just like myself. We've all got a path that we've gone down, but going from Indooroopilly, who were the people around you that helped develop you into kind of the man you are now?
It's interesting that the people that impact you in your life, it's sort of been multifaceted. So if I go back to my the days that I was working, spending 12 hours a day on a horse, we had some great mentors in that area, and it was around that period where all the natural horsemanship was coming in, and a lot of that was around basically skill acquisition in the horse industry. So rewarding a positive, positively reinforcing the correct movement, and then gradually building it up into a sequence of movements. So I took a lot of that into swim coaching, rather than, we came through the era where if you wanted to go faster, you just trained harder, and there was always the guilt trip put on you that if you hadn't achieved your reward, you had to basically your result, you had to toughen up and go harder next year. Mm-hmm. So there was that aspect of it. I think initially when I came back into coaching, I did everything that I knew from a swimmer, and that led to great results in the first couple of years, because I took over a team that my father had done a great job with the whole skill ac and technique side, and basically flogged them in plain terms, got them fit. And that was very, very successful, and until they reached sort of their late teens, towards the end of high school, and then every single one of them, departed from the sport, and basically were out of cards to play. So after a couple of seasons of that, I really started to try and explore better ways to do things, and that sort of coincided with I had a lot of senior swimmers give up. I had some younger people coming through, including the likes of Cate, and I sought out people like Shannon Rollerson, who was had Jodie Henry and Alice Mills, and a host of young sprint girls at that time, and was able to get a 2-week training scholarship through ASCA, our coach association, with him. And I'm a very visual learner, so just watching those girls train very much cemented in my mind that time, correct sprint freestyle technique, and also just seeing them, what they were capable of doing in the pool, not only in the pool but in the gym, was a big eye opener to me. There was a lot of talk in the late 90s about strength being overrated, and if what you couldn't achieve on a TheraBand, what sort of wasn't worth, or we had bungee cords and all that back then, wasn't worth getting. So I just started down my own journey in many regards, because I didn't have any older swimmers, and it was a smaller club. I had no pressure to really have kids perform at national open level. And I remember at the time saying, I don't know where this is going to lead, but I certainly like what I'm seeing. And I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, and almost got in a sweet spot there. And I think also back then that realization of the need for a speed base. So, you know, if at that stage I was trying to set Cate up for breaststroke, strangely enough, and she was a national age finalist at 12 in the under 13s in breaststroke, and went on to win states and all that sort of stuff. I think she went about 35.4 at 12 for breaststroke, which was pretty good back then.
Wow.
But then after she was playing handball one day at school and dislocated her hip, and then went on to have surgery for a labral tear. So then breaststroke was out, and I thought she didn't like going backward, didn't like doing backstroke. So I looked at what Shannon's girls were capable of doing, and then I thought, well, there's the benchmark. Until we can beat them over 50 meters, there's no point pursuing the 100. So that's the journey we set off in, and you know, basically it was a 25-meter pool. So I don't know whether you ever tried to coach, you know, middle distance and over swimmers in a short course pool, but man, it does your head in.
No, not me.
Yeah, so well, I'm the same. I don't have the attention span. So yeah, that's the direction we set off in, and the whole focus at that time of the club went to basically 100-meter and down swimming, and a few people left because of that. You know, kids of triathlete parents and Ironman parents and all those people that preach from the Bible of speed through endurance. And anyway, I had a core group of kids going, and we kept moving in that direction.
This is interesting. I didn't realize we were going to go in this direction, but I like where it's going. In terms of running a club and having a speed-based program set up, how early is too early? You know, you're talking about coaching younger kids. In America, the theory is, you know, still to this day throughout America is, you know, you go through endurance. You know, you train for the 200 free and the 500. The 400 IM and the 500 free. That's kind of the theory in America. That's what everybody trains. And then once you get to college, you can specialize in things like that. But it sounds like you went earlier than that in terms of the specialization, or maybe just even the type of training you were doing. How young is too young to start training for the 100 sprints?
Yeah, well, I think from a young age, what I didn't target was the likes of lactate tolerance, or, you know, what they now call power, anaerobic power. So it was more around speed development and also seeing speed as a not just a velocity thing, but a technical thing. So it wasn't just about forward velocity measured through the water. I always gave them technique parameters. So the young ones, for instance, you know, if they were sprinting, we did a lot of 12.5s back then because it was a 25-meter pool. If they were sprinting, I'd often get them to do, you know, like fingernail trail, or what I used to call nail polish, that sort of stuff. So there was always a technique parameter added to, so they weren't just in there spinning their arms as fast as possible. And then I would never do anything to exhaustion. So as soon as the technique failed or was looking like failing, I'd cut that off. And you know, it was unique, I guess, at this time. But as I said, I grew up with swimming. I got 6 fourth places at national age championships. I know what it's like to be fit and not have speed. I know what it's like to grind and not have talent. So I just wanted to do something different, or else I wasn't going to stay in coaching. It had to be just stimulating to my brain as well as the athletes.
Yeah, man, I'm totally with you on that one for sure. Where did in America they call it yardage? Where did yardage come into this in terms of how you're structuring your workouts?
So if I look back on what Cate was doing for, say, in 2008, she was sitting at around 15K a week. Now, I know that's ridiculously low, but also you've got to understand that she'd had 2 lots of hip surgery by then. I could get about 800 meters of kick total. That includes legs with swimming a week out of her. So I had to break that up into basically 2 400-meter sets, and the rest was done pull. Well, you can't do much more than, at 14, 15, when you got someone with levers that long, you can't do much more than 14K pull a week unless you want to start them short stroking and swimming like an endurance swimmer. So it was more the quality. I always looked at the quality component, how much race specific work I could get out, and just tried to make a fist of it like that.
The injury side of it with her specifically, was that because of her frame? I mean, she's got a very unique frame for sure. I mean, she's very tall, very lanky. Was she just having issues growing?
She's the ligaments in her hips were very loose. That's a genetic thing. Bronte also had issues with her hips. She had hip surgery as well. I think for Cate, just being a very, very long person, she also suffered. We were doing a training camp in Beijing a year out from the Olympics with the Queensland Academy of Sport, and we were time trialing there one day at the Beijing Institute, and she got up on a block that we hadn't previously used in the preceding sessions. And when I started her, so when the gun started, she took off, and the block top was not fixed down, and the block top came off, and she landed basically in the water on her front with her arms back, sort of in a crouch position, and her head extended, and she had whiplash from that as an injury. She spent the rest of that trip till we got her back to Australia in a neck brace, which was the advice at the time. And that whiplash injury, that damage never went away, and it still plagued her the other day in Tokyo. So she's had a lot of the injuries are her stories to tell, but she's had numerous injuries, and some of them have come about from probably just the revolutions of training and compounding over 4 Olympics, and others have come from man-made stuff through operations. Right.
Now, did they play other sports growing up? Did you encourage or discourage that at the time?
They played. Bronte played a little bit of water polo, as in just for school sport in primary school. But no, Cate didn't really do anything else. I was neither here nor there. I didn't discourage it, but I think they came from a family, where they had a severely handicapped brother, and which took a lot of the mum's time. So she was already very stretched, just getting the kids to school and swimming, and so I think that was basically became the chosen sport for the family, and the family very much invested in the swimming club with the father. Eric, he became the treasurer for 11 years and was a brilliant help there. And mum used to come up and work the canteen and sell togs and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Right. You said something a little earlier that I wanted to come back to that interested me because I kind of have a similar theory. You said speed base. What did you mean when you said speed base?
So, when I started looking at world-class 100-meter swimmers, which is the direction that I was pitching Cate for at that time, most of them were capable of basically double their 50-meter PB plus 4 seconds. It was around about that. That was their limit, and I think the extremes were about double their PB plus 3.7 or so seconds, and through to those that were more 50 up to 100 might have blown out to 4.5 or more. That was the parameter I was looking at. So I knew, back then that until their 50-meter speed reached a certain level, there was no point chasing the 100 and being a world beater. So that was sort of where we concentrated on. Now that was just my way of working it out. I've seen other champions produced in very different preparations. I've seen, I've watched Emma McKeon grow. She's been involved in the National Event Camp, Women's 4x1, which I've been running since 2013, and her route to the top has been very, very different to my girls. So there's many ways to skin a cat.
Mate, it seems to me that the whole world understands how to get a woman to swim 54 in the 100 free. A few countries in the world understand how to get a woman to swim 53. It seems like Australia is the only country in the world that's figured out how to get multiple women to swim 52. What is it that you guys are doing down there that is so different to the rest of the world right now?
I think knowledge sharing is a big key. One thing I've tried to do with running the women's sprint at the National Event Camp is use sets that I see as being key for preparation, and then use those within that training week. So those assistant coaches and coaches of other athletes within that group can see and understand how those set design evolved and came about to start with. I've never been one to hide what I was doing. I don't believe in secrets. I think, if you think you got secrets, good luck to you. You probably think you're a guru as well. But I think one of the things we've done in Australia is very much, all that information then is disseminated out through all coaches involved at that level. So for instance, Michael Boyle can have access to what I was doing. I can have access to what Dean Boxall's doing with Ariane Titmus, and Vince Rowley can have access to other programs, and we can have access to what he's done with Zach Stubblety Cook. So I think that's a great strength in Australia. We're very much recognise that we have a limited population. We have a limited talent pool, and we really have to try and get the most out of what we're working with. And I think we celebrate the fact that it's less about secrets and more about what type of coaching personality that athletes are drawn to when they're choosing their program, or they have long-term success within a program. That'd be one big part of it. The second part is that it's so damn hard to qualify for our women's 4x1 that when they do, as far as there's not many certainties in sport, but you're fairly certain that you're going to come away from the benchmark meet with a good result if you're part of that women's 4x1.
Yeah. Someone pointed this out to me, and I didn't notice it until they did just recently, but it seems to me that none of the Australian women are swimming with a straight arm, where a lot of maybe the Americans and some of the others are doing a straight arm freestyle for women. Is that correct? Are the Australian women not doing any straight arm at all?
No, I can't remember the last time I saw someone swim straight arm in Australia. As far as the women go, the men, we had that run with Clemmy and then Eamon Sullivan and Ash Callis. But I can't remember, maybe Yolande Cookler, who qualified for the 2012 Olympics. She used to go to straight arm a bit. That's about the last one, I think.
Is there any reason why you guys have gone in that particular direction? Obviously, it's working. So why go back to? Do you call it a bent arm freestyle? Is that what you're calling it?
I don't know. I just call it freestyle. I call it straight arm freestyle.
But I guess let's just call it bent arm freestyle. And so, is there a reason why you are just coaching that style?
I prefer to have that. To me, it's aesthetically more pleasing. I prefer to have that relaxed recovery. Not that you can't relax a straight arm recovery. I think possibly the entrapment of bubbles in the front of the straight with straight arm freestyle is slightly higher risk. But I think too, as humans, we're great copiers, and generally people will copy what's in front of them. So if there's no straight arm freestyle stars in the country going around, well, then the younger ones coming through probably aren't going to want to be that way.
Right. Without giving too much away, what are some of the other secrets, man? Because look, you got girls from at 51 in the 100 free, which is insane, but just a lot of 52s, and it's just so impressive. And I think people are just blown away with what is going on. So, what else? I mean, what else are people missing that are just obvious?
Yeah, I think for sprinting, one of the things that I've tried to do well, and one of my philosophies was around automaticity and performing fast regularly. So right from a young age, I tried to freshen someone like Cate each time we raced, whether it was just a local meet or a state or national level meet, and I think that was enabled a faster progression as well. I think when sprinters come off a really high workload, the straight mechanics is so far, and the feel is so far removed from how they then feel tapered. I think, unless they taper, race a meet, and then go on and maybe do World Cups or something where they're getting that constant exposure for a number of repetitions, I think by the time, if they taper for a meet, perform well, go and have a break, come back, go back through their endurance phase, the likelihood of them going a step above the following year, I believe, is limited. But plenty of people do it too. And I one thing I will say was that it's probably has been a bit to our detriment, the fact that that Cate dropped so many 52s in season. I mean, the world, it wasn't like she was doing them once every year or once every 2 years or 4 years. The world used to see her doing it regularly, and I think that raised the bar within women's sprinting worldwide, which if from a selfish point of view, probably came back to bite us on the backside a little bit. But then sport's greater than the result of one athlete, isn't it? I think she's set the benchmark for since 2013 when she dropped 52.3 to win in Barcelona. And she's had girls chasing her and beating her occasionally, but not that often. Since then.
Yeah. Mate, how big of an influence was Jocko on you? I know he's had tremendous success in the areas that we're talking about, sprint and female sprinting in particular. Was he of help to you as well?
Jocko's philosophy was quite different to mine. And it was interesting when he first came over and saw what I was doing, he thought that I was working them too hard and probably doing too much race pace work year round. And then I remember, so he started not too far before Com Games in 2014. And then it was after Com Games in 2014, after the women's 100 free, he said to me, "You seem to know what you're doing." in his funny Dutch sense of humor, you know. And then he goes, I understand what you're doing now. And I think coming out to Australia, he was able to appreciate the diversity of the programs that we have over here, and how that's a strength of ours. You know, our programs are chalk and cheese, and some of them are so extreme on opposite ends of the spectrum, but producing results in same events. So Jacko was very influential. You know, for a number of years we were talking about changing the timing of our trials, and it started to gather momentum. You know, we had 2020, go back, it was 2014 trials. I had 2 athletes at the trials ranked number 1 in the world, and they were injured 16 weeks later for that benchmark meet. And one of the issues that we had back then with the timing of our trials was that you had to be, say, women's freestyle, you had to go top 2 in the world to grab an individual spot. So you had to be at your absolute peak at trials, and then you had to be at your absolute peak 16 weeks later. And so that's a long time to continue pushing the body. So you know, we tried to then have that discussion, particularly after Rio, around having that 5-week turnaround between trials and the benchmark meet. And Jacko was able to get that over the line. And that's also been a major contributor to the performances of our team over the last couple of years. You know, you're choosing in-form athletes. It doesn't take a huge amount of work to keep them fit for that time. You can stay in touch with their form, and there's less time for injuries and that sort of stuff to go, just, you know, creep in and adversely affect performance. The other plug I'll give Jacko was he was very good with discussions around senior athletes, and you know, particularly after 2016 with Cate, for instance. We've always had policy in Australia where if they weren't selected for the following benchmark meet, they were off funding. So we were leaning on our big hitters every year to stand back up again and get medals for the nation, and therefore secure funding. And after Rio, you know, Jacko was through conversation, you know, he said, well, she doesn't have to swim next year. Why would we expect her to swim next year? And just hearing those things was absolutely refreshing, coming from the national head coach. And it was because he'd coached senior athletes or athletes that had longevity in the sport that he was able to you know, draw on that, on his wisdom from previous experience, and it was good. Yeah, for sure. You talked about something of interest too. You talked about doing a lot of race pace work, and then Jocko having a different philosophy and saying that you may not be resting enough. In terms of recovery in your program, how much race pace are you doing, and when are you recovering within a weekly cycle type thing? Yeah, so generally I'll be 3 times a week. I'll do race pace, and they're the big the key sessions. You know, they vary quite a bit in what they look like, and also I'll change them day to day as to what I see walking into the pool that afternoon, as far as energy levels of the athlete. Now you know, I've seen a lot of programs over the years. I've seen programs that do 5 main sessions a week, and that's fine as well. I think at the end of the day, the way I look at it is you've got 1 cup of energy to draw on. I try and get 1/3 of that energy out 3 times a week, and if you go 5 mains, well, then you're going to get, you know, 1/5 of that energy out 5 times a week. So I think the speed component that I was looking for demanded more recovery and less main sets in the makeup of my programs.
All right, gotcha. Mate, people are going to go mental if I go through this whole interview and I don't ask you just one specific set that you could share with us that maybe Cate has killed in the past, or Bronte. Is there any particular set that you like to hit with them that you've had success with?
Probably a good set that I've used in the past, where it was later on in the prep, was a suited set where we'd go a max 100 dive or push. In this prep, we couldn't do a dive because one had a back injury and one had a neck injury, so then you're limited. So we both started the set push. But max 100 push, and they were sort of pushing for that one at that stage of that camp, probably 53 and a 54.
Is this long?
And then they were suited, and then I think from memory they were on about, that 100 was on about 3 minutes, and then we went into they had to achieve 5 50s at faster than back end speed. And on the two, from memory, they were on 2 minutes to 2:30. And if they missed one, they'd just get some extra rest, and then they'd go again until they'd achieve 5. So that was pretty solid.
What's their back end speed that they want to come back in?
So at that stage, I wanted them feet lead to hand touch. I wanted them 26.4 or faster for Cate, and 26.6 or faster for Bronte.
Is this long course?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was long course, yeah.
Pushing 53s or 54 lows, that's pretty nice to see that.
Yeah. That you build up to get to that state too. So I'd they've been recovered the day before, and there was a lot of emphasis put on that set.
What about in terms of tapering the girls? Do you do a longer taper with them or a shorter taper? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I've always gone a longer taper, generally around the 3-week mark. And I think that's probably been reflective of the volume of intensity that they've had to endure throughout the prep. And very often it's taken every bit of 3 weeks for them to get up again. With the 5-week turnaround, it's normally a little shorter. Second time round might be around the 2-week mark. But I've had a fair bit of success with that 3-week mark with the sprinters. I know, I saw other guys on our team taper 2 weeks for their sprinters, and that worked well as well. I think it's always just about the preceding load that you have to take into effect, and how long you think that it's going to take for that super compensation to come through, and their recovery to relative to how much you've stressed that central nervous system.
Yeah. Now, I understand you were looking after their strength and conditioning for a long period of time too. Did you give that up at some point?
I looked after their strength conditioning until we went to work for NSWIS in 2019. And that was primarily because I'd had good success with it. But B, when I went down to Sydney, there was only 2 swimming programs at that stage, and NSWIS were very keen to get their S&C guys involved in the program, from a learning perspective as well. So at that stage, I handed over the S&C, and then took it back up basically when we moved back up to Queensland in 2020 for the remainder of the prep into the Olympics.
Right.
They've always had a number of physio exercises due to their makeup and the amount of injuries they've carried. They've always had lots of physio-based exercises, which I stayed right out of. They were sort of far beyond my expertise. But the key lifts that I thought were important to their swimming, I always kept in.
Yeah. Mate, just on that, I'm a Maroubra boy. I grew up in the heart of Sydney, down there on Maroubra Beach. What's going on with my state, man? Why is there not? Where's all the Olympians gone? Like, what's going on in Sydney, man? There should be a plethora of young talent coming through. What's happening?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that they had 3 Olympians on the team, 4 if you count Jess Hansen, who's training at the AIS, but three NSWIS athletes on the team, and they come away with a number of medals. So that's the first plug I'll give them.
All right.
NSWIS. As far as the development of talent down there, it's an interesting one. I think that a lot of energy and effort's been putting in by Swimming New South Wales currently to try and overcome this problem. I think after living down there for 2 years, that there's a lot of challenges, but none so more than just the population density. As in, I could have a talented athlete living 10 kilometres from the pool that I coached out of, and they just couldn't physically, unless they were out of school, they couldn't physically come and train with me, because that 10 kilometre drive in the afternoon take them an hour in traffic. The population in Sydney has just grown to the point where it just becomes gridlocked. So it's a very restrictive thing. And I think also if you go back to days of old in Sydney, and this isn't just Sydney. I mean, this is Queensland as well. North Queensland used to be a powerhouse. I mean, a lot of these public pools were leased by coaches so that they could make a living for their family, but primarily secure lane space to pursue their coaching careers. And now most of our public pools have been taken over by leisure companies. So where for those leisure companies, the bottom line is the dollar. Their money comes from chips, ice cream, lap swimming, and learn to swim. And no one has any interest in basically giving up half of their pool or a third of their pool in peak times to pursue high performance swimming. The private schools, I think, are doing their fair share of lifting with trying to develop their swimming programs, and certainly the schools that are involved in down there, like Knox Grammar and PLC, Pymble Ladies College, had invested a lot into upskilling their coaches and trying to retain their good swimmers and keeping their head coaches one jump ahead of their athletes. They're looking at all options down in New South Wales. I think I would say that the future will be regional hubs down there, just to get people out of the restraints or the constraints of the city.
Yeah, right. Mate, Cate's coming off her 4th Olympics, I believe, and Bronte's obviously had success and coming through a lot of injuries. What's your gut feeling on their future? Are they going to kick on from here, or have you got the sense that this could be it?
Look, I'm not sure. I would say at this stage they'll definitely kick on. As to how long they kick on for, probably will depend on the world, the nature of swimming across the world and how COVID continues to affect it. I think the ISL stuff was a very good program for keeping those older swimmers around, those that could swim for cash and maybe stay around for the sprint events and relays, just to give them longevity, keep them in the sport, possibly for another Olympics cycle. World Cups, ISLs, it's all a bit up in the air at the moment. And then you have to quarantine. You've got to pay. If you're coming back into Australia, you've got to pay for your own quarantine. You've got 2 weeks of downtime stuck in a box like we are currently. So there's a few detractors as well. So, look, I think for now they'll swim on, and then they'll just have to none of us can foresee the future, and they'll have to work it out as they go along.
Yeah. Can you give us a brief idea of what's going on with this Australian professional league?
No idea really, mate, other than probably what you've read, or I think I don't have the exacts on it, but that'd be available through our head coach. But I think the strategy is to have a number of teams within Australia, and they compete on a regular or semi-regular basis. And there'll probably be a bit of a draft pick so that the teams are even, for the sake of close racing and improving the spectator potential. Yep. But other than that, mate, I can't give you a lot more.
Yeah, right. What about you, mate? What's your future? You've got a couple of weeks here locked down to unwind and appreciate what you've just done, but what's coming up for you?
Yeah, I'll like every other coach on the team, I'll go back and have discussions with current employers and Swimming Australia and see what the new strategy is going to look like. They're talking about having a hub system, so see where I fit in with that, and I'll be involved in swimming in some capacity. I'm not sure where I'll be placed at the moment, but over the next coming months, we'll find out more.
Good stuff, mate. Well, just before I go, the world was kind of smacked in the face with Dean Boxall and his achievements and his celebrations. And look, I've known Dean for many years, and he's a good bloke. Love to see him have success. Just from your point of view, what's he doing well?
I think Dean has a lot of energy. He brings a lot of energy to his program, and that flows through to his athletes. I think he runs an exciting program. He certainly challenges his athletes, there's obviously success there at the swimming club at St. Peter's. The principals there, a number of principals over the years have invested heavily in the swim program. So, longevity in any program is key. Whilst there's been transitions from head coach, from previous head coach Michael Bowl through to Dean Boxall, all the underlying development layers are still there. So, at the end of the day, longevity, I think, in sport is key, and also the fact that the school should be given kudos for the fact that they've been able to maintain a firm direction for probably since 2003 when Michael Bowl first went there.
Yeah. Well, listen, mate, I appreciate you doing this. Thanks for sharing, and I'm so glad the internet held up on us today. It seemed like it went flawlessly, so I'm pretty excited about that. But, yeah, it's good to see good people having success, mate, and congratulations on everything.
Thanks, Hawke. Nice chatting.
Yeah, mate. Take care, all right?
See you, mate.
See ya.